and welcome everyone to our session on Microsoft Loop. I think Loop is one of these applications that not everybody is aware of that is super helpful. So today we're going to be focusing basically on how to use Loop from a leadership perspective, not features for features, so to say, but really how Loop can help leaders stay aligned, reduce follow-up, and really keep priority visible without more meetings, which if you're like me, I don't want any more meetings. I'm trying to reduce those. So what is Microsoft Loop and why leaders should care? Well, Loop is about keeping information live wherever it happens to live. And I'll explain what I mean by that as we go through some demonstrations today. So for leaders, that means fewer status checks via email and fewer questions about where's the latest version of this conversation. Loop can do all of that for us. So I want you to be thinking of Loop as a flexible canvas with portable pieces of content. And these pieces, which are tables, task lists, notes, they all stay in sync wherever they're shared. So we'll talk about how to share those and where they get shared to. So the key leadership benefits here is visibility. You don't need to chase updates. The information updates itself, whether it's in Teams, it's in an email, it's in a meeting, it's in OneNote, it updates all the time because it's live. So Loop itself as an application has three parts. It has workspaces for more of a bigger picture. It has pages for really kind of organizing content. And it has components, which is what we're going to focus mainly on today. And that's for live work that leaders really care about, like tasks, decisions, priorities. So this is where Loop fits into leadership workflows. It's with planning, tracking, and the collaboration side, without replacing tools that you already are using. So Loop components are portable. So when we talk about creating a table, a task list, etc. in Microsoft Loop, they are portable. When you update a task list in Teams, the same information is going to show everywhere else that component lives. So when it comes to using pages within Microsoft Loop, pages grow with the work. Leaders don't need to design a perfect structure on day one. Loop pages are going to evolve as priorities evolve. Now, let's actually take a look at where do these reside? What exactly are these? So if you are in your Microsoft account, you log in online to your Microsoft account, Loop itself is one of your 365 apps. So if you go to your apps launcher, where you can see at the top you have all of your shortcuts to get into different apps. Of course, if you can't see everything, you can go directly into all apps. So however it is that you log into your Microsoft account, make sure that you go to your all apps. Now, if you use Loop a lot, like I do, you can have a shortcut on your favorites bar, your bookmarks, so that you can quickly and easily get to it. But you can see here's the Loop icon. So once you click on Loop, what it's going to do is take you to the home page of the Loop app. And you can see on the left-hand side, it's got Create New. We have search capabilities. We have Recent. We have Workspaces. You could see some recent components that I've worked with that are down at the bottom. But on the right-hand side, you're actually going to see a list of different workspaces. Now, we're going to get into a little bit more on what exactly is a workspace here in just a second, but there is a tab on the top where it says Recent Components and Pages. If I click on Recent Components and Pages, a component is going to be the live loop component that we can insert into chats, into emails, into a OneNote notebook all over the place. But pages are a little bit different. Pages are a way that we can collaborate as well. But let me show you an example of a page. And I'm just going to go to this one called Excel Lookup Functions. And it's in a workspace called My Workspace. So a workspace is the big picture of where things can be stored. Inside workspaces, you can have pages, and your pages can include components. So it reminds me a lot, the way that it's kind of structured, reminds me a lot of OneNote notebooks, where you have your notebook, you have your sections, and you have your pages. Here we actually have the workspace, we have the pages, and we have the components inside the pages. So anyway, just so you could see, here is Excel lookup functions, and this is all written all within this page. So this is an example of a page, but can I tell you where it actually came from? It came from Copilot. So I didn't actually come into Loop to create it. Loop can also be used in Copilot pages. If you create a page within Copilot, it automatically is a Loop component page. So anyway, just so you could see how that all flows together. I love the fact that our 365 apps work together. And you're going to definitely see that with the examples we have here today with Loop. So a page is where we can put details. We could type text, we can add in a Loop component to it. And just to back up a little bit, I'm actually going to go to the left-hand side, and under my personal category, I'm going to click My Workspace. And under My Workspace, you can see that I have all of these different pages. And I know it's a page based on the icon on the left-hand side. And then I know if it's an actual component because it has the loop icon on the left-hand side. So pages, components, and workspaces all have different icons so that you can easily identify them. Now, if I happen to go back to the home page of Loop, I was on workspaces by default. My workspace is your personal space of where everything that you create is going to go. So if I create pages, whether they're coming from Copilot or wherever, if I create components, which are coming from emails, wherever, I can find them in my workspace. Otherwise, we can create other workspaces that we can have multiple pages to that we can be adding components to. So just to show you an existing one, I'll just go into this PM plan, so a project management plan, just so you could see, just like OneNote notebooks, on the left-hand side is a list of the different pages. You can create a new page, but I happen to be on this untitled page. Let's say that I want to have my PM plan details on here. I give it a name, and it updates the name on the left-hand side with that same name, just like a OneNote notebook does. Now, I could just start typing whatever information I want to type, like you do in a OneNote notebook. But how this is actually going to be very different is we can actually go to the left and click this plus sign, and we can be adding in an actual Loop component. So this is a drop-down list showing you different menu options when you are in a workspace. So if I want to add in a new subpage, I could, or if I want to add a live table that I can share this with other people and they can update it with me. We could also do checklists. We have bulleted lists, numbered lists. We have dates, call outs, mermaids. We can create all kinds of different formatting, text styles. There's a great big huge long list, Q&A sections. All these can be added. But I don't want to jump too far ahead just yet. So we'll come back to this in just a few minutes. But let me jump back to PowerPoint for a minute. So when we talk about pages, pages are where we can put information. Workspaces are ideal for initiatives. So leaders can see everything in one place without asking teams for separate reports, emailing people back and forth, chatting with people. We can always know it's right here and everything is shareable because we're in 365. So this is one of Loop's highest value leadership uses. Creating shared visibility so everyone sees the same priorities. So instead of static decks, leaders use live tables showing ownership, showing status, showing tasks, and update them directly during a meeting. We're going to actually see an example of how we can do something before, during, and after a meeting with Microsoft Teams, but these tables replace status meetings. So leaders review the table instead of going back to a slide deck because these tables that are considered a loop component are live. So when someone that we share it with updates the information, we look at it, it's updated instantly. It doesn't have delay of any kind, really. It is updated instantly. So decisions slow down when context is scattered. We have stuff all over the place. So how do we make decisions? We have to go out and find everything first. Loop is going to centralize the decision so that leaders don't re-debate the past. We're going to have everything live in one location. So a shared decision log tracks context, recommendations, owners, and outcome, all in one visible place. Leaders can contribute, they can have voting, they can have comments, and the outcomes are going to be live. We don't have to go through long email threads to try and find things. So definitely, if you have not tried these loop components, after we get done with our session today, I'm going to highly recommend you practice with them and practice with a coworker. If you have someone attending this training that's a coworker of yours, that'd be a good person to practice this with. But it's also good to practice with somebody that doesn't know how to actually use the component, and you're going to see how easy it is for people to pick up on how it works. So Loop helps leaders oversee these cross-department initiatives without having to micromanage or request separate updates from different people from different avenues. Each team can contribute to the same workspace. Leadership can review in one unified view, one area. Because Loop lives inside Teams, Outlook, OneNote, leaders don't need to change how they work to gain that visibility. You're already in tools that you're already using. It's just another piece inside it. So Loop shows up where leaders already spend their time. Whether you're working in Microsoft Teams and you're doing a chat, you're doing a post in a channel, you're working on a meeting, or if you're creating an Outlook email, you're doing a meeting, you can have a loop component right inside a meeting. You can also put loop components into Word, whiteboards, and OneNote notebooks. It's just a tool that can always be there and be shared, that can be also not just shared with coworkers, but can be shared from one location to another. So we don't just see a loop component in one place, which we'll talk about how do I see it or use it in another physical location, because how do I know what loop components I have out there? How do I know when they're being updated? That's always a big question, because who wants to hunt down something that you need to see? So I'll show you some shortcuts to that. But definitely can use it in a lot of different places. So this is the easiest place to start. Shared task lists for a leadership meeting would be an option. So let's actually take a look at Microsoft Teams. So let me share my Microsoft Teams window with you. How can we use a loop component directly here in Microsoft Teams? Well, one is in a chat. So if I'm on a chat, yes, Matthew, did someone have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to pop this one in before we get it started in the Teams here. They're wondering, I went to Loop and looked at recent components and pages, I'm assuming in the Loop web app. I only had a few and most from a long time ago. What does Loop pull from to go into the recent components and pages? And I also experienced this recently. You go into the web page, the Loop web page, and maybe some of the components that you're expecting to see there in the recent section aren't there. Where are they going, and where can we find those loops?
Well, that's actually a really good question, and I'm going to be answering that here shortly.
Okay, we'll hold on then.
Once we understand what they are, I'll get to where do they go.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll table that for just a couple more minutes, all right?
All right.
So one way to use a loop component is to put it in a chat. Whether you have a group chat or you have an individual chat, you can put in a loop component. So let's say that you have a leadership group that you are chatting back and forth with, and you want to have a task list to do some action items for an upcoming meeting, and you want to do some prep work with that. So we want to have a place where we can actually assign people to doing the work, put in a list of tasks that need to be done prior to this meeting. Well, when you go to create a chat, you go to either an existing chat or you start a brand new chat, and from there you go down to your chat window. And that's where you're going to find the loop component icon. Now, the icon looks the same pretty much everywhere you go, but it's not always easy to find until you're familiar with what the icon looks like. And it's this little circle-looking icon down here on the menu. So down here on the right-hand side of this chat window, if you hesitate on it, it of course says Loop Components. So when you click on it though, what it's actually going to give you is your cursor is blinking where you can add a title. So I'm going to do that first. So I want to actually name this, I'm going to name it Leadership Action Items. And then down at the bottom, you can see that I have these icons for the different types of components we can insert. Components are actually like little templates, and they can be modified, just so you're aware, but they're going to come with a standard format. And then they'll have menu options that you can use to modify it. So whether you want to have a table, which if you're familiar with tables, that's columns and rows that you can organize information. You could have a standard bulleted list, but it's not just a bulleted list like we would create. It's going to be a live list. So if you're chatting with other people, they can add to the list. So it's not like just typing in text and then adding bullets to it, just so you're aware. Also, we have a checklist option, and I'll be demonstrating different options in different places as we go through some demos here. We have a task list, we have voting table, we have a numbered list on the more items menu, you have Q&A, etc. So depending on where you are at, so I'm in Teams right now, these are what my component choices are. I'm simply going to click task list. By default, it inserts this loop component, which is live for both myself and anybody else that is a part of this chat. So you could see that I have the name of it up at the top, and my cursor is blinking in the first column for the first task name. So by default, what you're getting is task name, add assignee, select a date, and I can even choose a bucket. Now, if this all sounds a little bit too familiar, what this is actually referring to is Microsoft Planner. It's directly connected to Planner. Remember how I was talking about how it's wonderful that Microsoft 365 plays so nice together? It's connected to Planner. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But let's say that I want to create this task list for this upcoming leadership meeting. And we're going to need to create the agenda. And I want to assign that to student 1. So I'm going to assign that to student one because student one is a part of this chat. Okay, then I could select when the due date is going to be. If I wanted to give it a different bucket, I could. I won't worry about that just yet. And then maybe we also need to create an invite list. Who are we going to invite? And I'm going to assign that to myself. And I'm going to choose a due date for that. And I'm going to say it's due on, oops, I picked a Saturday. I don't want to pick Good Friday. I'll pick the 2nd of August. So we can continue to add, even though there's only 2 lines to begin with. Down at the bottom left, I could always click Add Task to continue to add more tasks in. So down at the bottom, it's actually giving us a tally of how many tasks are assigned to each individual person. There's a total of 3 items in the to-do list, okay, because I added that 3rd row. If you look at the top of this, people in your organization with a link can edit this. So just so you can see, if I click on that, it takes me into link settings. So we can actually set an expiration date. We can choose if they can edit or not. We can actually say just people in this chat have access to this component. So it's got all the Microsoft bells and whistles all over it. So very similar, almost identical to your normal sharing capabilities. Now I'm going to just keep what I already had and I'm going to click apply. So anybody in my organization that ends up having a link to this is going to be able to use and contribute to this task list. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and send this because this is part of the message, the chat that I was doing with my student one. I'm going to go to the bottom right and click send. So student one has received this notification about having this loop component available. So this is going to be one way to work with a loop component in Microsoft Teams. But let me give you another. I'm going to actually go to Microsoft Teams inside Teams, and I have this ABC leadership channel, or I should say team, and I have this operations execution channel that I had just created, and I want to make sure that everybody is ready to go on using this information. So on this leadership announcements, I actually want to have an announcement that others can contribute to so that when we go to send this out via email, we have every announcement that we need from all the different leaders. So all the leaders within the ABC company all have access to this team, to this channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into post I'm going to create a new post to this channel, and this is going to be for announcements for April, because April's going to be here in just a few minutes, it seems like. So let me get my typo fixed there. And then down here in the typing area, notice your little tools menu, you have your loop component. So if I want to click on that loop component, once again at the top, I can give it a title, and I'm going to say announcements. I have to spell it correctly again. Announcements for April. And then I can choose what type of a component I want to insert. And I'm actually going to say I want to insert a checklist. It's going to give you a little circle so that when you're done with something, you can check it off the list, and then your cursor is blinking where you could type things in. So new leader starting in accounting is going to be one of the announcements, and then we can always press enter and add more and more to this. So whoever has rights to this team, to this channel, to this post is going to be able to collaborate and add things into this loop component. But by default, it's just giving us a checklist. It's giving us the circle to check things off when we're done, and it's giving us a place to type in our entries. Not much to it, but very useful. So on the right-hand side, you can see that I have a delete if I want to delete this component, but also I have that share capability, just so you're aware. Now, we'll, of course, take this a little bit further, but right now, I'm going to say I'm done with this post, so I'm going to post it so everybody can see it. I'm going to go to the bottom right, and I'm going to click post. So now this is a live post that anybody that's a part of the channel can come in and contribute to this. So that was two different ways that we can use a loop component in Teams. But I have another one I want to show you. Now, before I get to that, every time your component goes live, there's going to be a menu at the top right. So this one, it can be pinned for everybody. So if you see a push pin and you want this to stay visible to everybody, you can pin it. Okay. So then you also have this shared. If I click on shared, you could see it would give me all of my shared locations. So if I share the link to this loop component someplace else, like via email, in a SharePoint document library, wherever, it would show me every place that it's been shared. I can add this also to a workspace. So if we have a leadership workspace and I want this component to be available on there, we could do that. And if it's being updated here in the post, it's also being updated wherever it is shared. If it's shared in an email, if it's shared in a workspace, everywhere it is connected. So it's one component being shared multiple places, just so you're aware. Now at the top right, you'll also see copy components. So if you want to make a duplicate of it, you could, and then just make your changes to it. But the share is the last one. So if you want to share this with other people, you can actually go into share. Now, these are the people that all have access to this, and that's related to anybody that is a part of this team. If somebody gets added to this team, they automatically get added to be someone that has rights to this component. Now, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about all of that here, but you've seen two. I want to show you the last way that we can use a loop component here in Teams. I'm going to go to the calendar on the left-hand side, and I'm going to create a new event. I'm going to just go to 3:30 this afternoon. I'm going to say I want to create a new event. So when I start this new event, I do my normal things where I'm going to say, and let's say that this is actually going to be that leadership meeting. We're going to do a leadership meeting with core group. I would put in who do I want to invite. So I'm going to invite my student 1. I won't invite anybody else because in class I don't want to, invite people. I could change the date and time like we always do. I could say this is going to be a Teams meeting. And then down at the bottom, because this is a Teams meeting, you have this little section down at the bottom where it says add an agenda. Sometimes we forget to look all the way down there. It's very important component, so you definitely want to go down there. So if you click add agenda, it's going to automatically create a loop component that is a template for a meeting agenda. So right away at the top, you're going to see the name of the meeting. You're going to see it has a placeholder for agenda, and it has that checklist. So if we need to talk about new announcements for April, and then we also have the new employee starting April 5th, whatever agenda items we want to add, we put them in here. Now, just so you know, when you send this to invite people, they have access to this. They can update this live. This is a loop component that I use before the meeting. I put in the meeting agenda. During the meeting, we can add in meeting notes. There's a section in this template directly for meeting notes. So we could go there and do meeting notes. Now, I'll demonstrate that here in a minute. But when it comes to the follow-up tasks, this is related to when we have the meeting, either during the meeting or after the meeting, we can be adding in a task list. So if you want to have assigning tasks to people based on the content of your meeting, this is where you could store those. You can do it before the meeting, but usually we see it being used more so during the meeting. Okay, now some of that I can't demonstrate because we're in a Teams meeting. I can't do another Teams meeting, but I'll come back and show you how this ends up looking after we send the invite. So I'm going to say I'm done with all of the parts I wanted to put in there for right now. I'm going to go ahead and click send. Now, I have done a couple of things related to student one of my coworkers. So I really want to show you the back end of that. So I'm actually going to go to Microsoft Outlook. So here in Microsoft Outlook, here is my student one account. And just so you can see, there's things that have been sent to student one. Here's a task that was assigned during that loop component that I did. So you can see, I don't have a name on it right now, but this has, and it's create the agenda. It has this loop component that is automatically available. So Jolynn assigned you to a task in the loop paragraph 3. I can click go to task. I can click create the agenda. I have all these different links to get to it. I'm going to actually click on the link for this component itself so that it's automatically going to take me to that component. So where it's actually taking me to is Microsoft Loop. It took me directly into Microsoft Loop. Now, the other links can take me directly to that task itself in Planner, etc. But just so you could see where it took me. So it's got the leadership action items. I could add in icons for this. I could put in a cover page for this loop component. Those are some extra features that we have that are actually bookings related. And the icon is related in a lot of different places, but you can see that this is available for others to use. So if somebody else wants to come in, they click on that link or go to their loop components, go to their loop app online, and they can come back to a loop component at any time. So just so you could see, if I add another task to this, it's going to automatically update. Everybody will be able to see it regardless of where it's located at. So let me add in one more task. Do the report for leaders. Okay. And whoever I want to assign it to, I can put in the person's name. If we wanted to have a due date, we could put in a due date. And just so you could see over on this column called bucket, this is how we organize things within Microsoft Planner, where if we want to have different categories, you can have different buckets. So if I click on that, you can actually see that it's got to do, but if I want to add another option, I can choose to do so. So let's say that it's related to leaders meeting. I can type in leaders meeting and have that be a bucket. If I want any of the other tasks to go to that bucket, I just go to the bucket column for that task and I choose the one I want it to be organized with. Okay. At the top right, you have this task apps. When you click on that, you can actually open this loop component directly into Microsoft Planner. You can do that directly in a lot of different places. Watch for that icon at the top. When you click open in Planner, which is kind of towards the end of your handout, by the way, it automatically takes you into the planner that is related directly to that task list. So we can have access to a lot of different things from a lot of different places. But I need to jump back here for a minute. I'm going to go back here into Microsoft Teams. So I sent the invite. When we have the actual meeting, we could always go directly to the meeting like you normally do. You'll still have access to that loop component down at the bottom. So before I start the meeting, or join the meeting, I should say, I could go back and add in additional information if needed. If I want to add in meeting notes and things like that, I could, but we haven't done the meeting yet. But if I joined the meeting, during the meeting, as soon as you join it, now, like I said, I can't demonstrate this because I'm already in a Teams meeting and it will be confused and I'll lose connection. But what's going to happen is, as soon as you join the meeting, it immediately opens a notes pane. And in that notes pane is going to be this list. This loop component is available where you're going to be able to put in your meeting notes. Whoever in your organization is going to do that. Whoever is in the meeting can go to that notes icon. The icon is on the menu across the top in Teams. once you click on it, but it will open by default when you start the meeting. But otherwise, they can click on the icon to open it, and then whoever is going to be putting in the meeting notes, they just come in and start typing. Here is what we talked about, blah, blah, blah. It's all going to be stored in one central location. Now, if during that meeting we want to add in tasks, we can also do that right in that notes window. So if I click add task, it's going to give me that same component look that we saw earlier. So if I want to add in a task that was related to this meeting where we need to update the team site, and we're going to assign that to student 1, and we're going to give it a due date. All these normal things can be used. So we could do that before, during, and after that meeting. Now I'm going to go ahead and just close this, and the updates, if anybody else comes in, because it's on their calendar, because they were invited, they're going to get the same things. So that, to me, is my most common use of a loop component. That's the piece that I probably use the most. And I use it regularly. Every time I create an event, I use that because it's built to do that. And it's going to be available for after the meeting as well. So just so you know that it does all of that. So when it comes to using these components, we've really been kind of focusing on Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is one of my main places that I use loop components, but I also use loop components in Outlook. So I'm going to jump back into Outlook for a minute. So here in Outlook, I'm actually, oops, sorry. Let me go back to Outlook. There we go. Once again, I just assigned another task. So it's updating all these tasks I've assigned to student 1. Student 1 is getting emails letting them know they were assigned to it. That's part of Planner. So if somebody assigns a task to you, you're going to get notified. It's automatically being updated back in a plan, and it's being updated in your to-do because you're assigned to it. So just so you know, it plays nice with all these other 365 areas. But anyway, you can see that here's that meeting. They can come in and they can see the content of the meeting for the link and things, but down here in the email itself, they're not going to see that loop component. They can see it if they add it to their calendar and go to their calendar. So I'm going to say that student 1 is going to accept that meeting. So we get these great notifications so that we know if something is going on. But how does this work if somebody creates a new email? Well, let me actually create a new email. Oh, by the way, I got my notification saying student 1 accepted this. But let me say that I want to create a new email. And I'm going to send this to student 1 and my leadership group because we're going to be doing a leadership conference. And in that leadership conference, we want to have a live table to be updating information. So as people are thinking about things that, we need to talk about or things that we need to do or whatever the case might be to keep us organized for this, to do brainstorming for this, we could do it right in a loop component. So I'm going to, sometimes I'll put in a message here. Here is the place to store the details for the conference. So from your menu at the top, either your home tab or your message tab, you're creating a message, so it always goes to your message tab. There's loop components. Once you click on that icon with the universal logo, you're going to basically get the same thing that you saw previously, where we can put in a title. So I'm going to put in a title of Leadership Conference, and then I can choose what type of a component I want to add in. And my recommendation to each of you is create, just go to the Loop app or into an email and just add in a loop component, pick each one so you know what's in it. So start with a table, then put in a bulleted list, then put in a checklist, etc., so that you can see what each of these loop components look like and what they provide for you by default. so that you can know more about them. Because sometimes it's like, well, which one should I be using? So anyway, just a very common one is table, so I'll demonstrate table. So basically what this is going to do, and you have a list of tools at the top left here. You have a switch view, so if you want to change to a board view or calendar view, once we've added in some information, we could do some sorting, we could do some filtering. And then under this more option, you could change height, you can hide columns, you can even export this to Excel if you wanted to. But you can go to where it says column 1 and you can put in your details for column 1. So maybe we need to know the conference location ideas. And then in column 2, we need to know hotel details. So I'm just going to put in hotel. So then we can go to each of these lines and put in information about the conference location. So if we want one to be in Seattle, Washington, we want one to be in Victoria. Oops, I didn't spell Victoria correctly. So you can see that we can add these in just like you would in a normal table. Notice it's got this little dot, dot, dot on the left. We can actually move things around. So if I want to rearrange the order or we need to delete a row, we can always rearrange things. So maybe I'm going to say Utah or wherever, just so you can see we can be adding things in. If you need more lines, new. You click new and it will add another row for you. Okay. Now also notice at the top right, we have the share icon, just like I showed you before. But this is automatically being shared with anybody that I'm sending via email. But if we share a link to it, that link could be available to everybody within your organization by default. If you want to change that, you need to go to the menu like I showed you a few minutes ago. And you could say just the people that are part of this email or just the people that are part of this team, etc. So anyway, let me go ahead and send this. So I'm going to send this to student 1. I can always go back to that loop component for my sent items. Here's my email for this loop component. And let's say that I needed to come in and I remembered the name of the hotel for in Utah, and it was going to be the ABC Hotel. So I can update that at any time. Okay, so I can go to the email to get to it, but I'll show you where else I could access this in a moment. So let's say that student 1 received this email. So I go back to student 1 because I have both accounts here. You can see I have a new email with that leadership conference. You can also see that it's already been updated with that ABC Hotel. If I come in as student 1 and I add information to this, so if I come in and I say that we want it to be in New York or wherever, we can put in whatever information it is that we want to see. So whatever information we add in, it's automatically, as soon as you leave that, it has updated it. So if the other person goes back to that loop component, they're going to see those updates as well. So that's that live collaboration that you will get no matter where it's being saved. Whether it's in a chat, it's in a channel, it's in a Teams event, it's in an email, it's in a OneNote notebook, etc., etc. You'll be able to see live updates on that, which to me, that is just so easy to do. So this is a great option to do, but I do want to show you one more. I want to show you in OneNote notebooks because this is where I do a lot of brainstorming. So if you're a OneNote notebook user, loop components have been wonderful for me because it makes it so much easier for having things be organized. And I don't always have to go back to OneNote to have access to those loop components. So anyway, just so you know, if you want to add in a loop component, it's going to be on the Insert tab. You go to that icon, that universal icon for loop component. This will be a list of the loop component options that you have for inside OneNote notebooks. So if I want a progress tracker, I want a numbered list, whatever it is that you want. I'm going to actually choose voting table. I'll do 2 here, just so you could see what it gives you by default. Now I'm going to make this loop component a little bit wider here. But anyway, what you see from this is, and it's giving the title and a link based on the name of the page, I'm on, which happens to be March 2026 meetings. So this could be my leadership meeting where we're doing brainstorming on what we're going to cover during those monthly meetings or whatever with the leadership group. I could come in and add a title to this, and we are going to be voting on new locations. All the leaders are going to be helping vote on new locations. So anybody that has access to this notebook, because of course we share our notebooks, or access to this loop component via a link, will be able to do live updates. So it has this column for what is your idea, so you can click in there and put in what your idea is. So I'll say my idea is New York. Here's the pros. It has a lot of hotels. The cons are it's a really big city. And then somebody else can put in another idea, and then people can come in and vote. So we can actually go over to the vote and say, I vote for this one. And it's going to mark that I have voted for that. And it keeps a tally of who has voted for what. So that's just an example of how you could actually use a voting table. Now, if I decided I wanted to add another loop component to a page or to a different section on a different page or on the same page, it doesn't matter here in OneNote, I'm just going to go back to loop components, and I'm going to do this progress tracker just so you could see an example of how this actually looks. And by the way, these are coming into the OneNote notebook as a container, so it can be moved. You can click and drag and move it wherever you want it to go. So if I have this where we have this, forgot which one I did know. Oh yeah, the work area. So if I wanted to have this be related to, let's say that we're going to have a progress tracker on the leaders' tasks for April. We could say what work area it's going to be related to. We could put in who's going to be the owner of it. We can be adding it in just so you could see. I'm going to make this a little bit wider. You can see that it automatically has a status. And what's really, let me scroll down on this so you can see this better. It has built-in statuses. So these aren't things that we are building. We're using templates coming through these loop components. So if we want to go in and say it's not started, we can have an end date for when this is going to end, add in any blockers for this work area, etc. So we can keep track of the progress of what's going on. So we have all kinds of ways that we can use these loop components. So just imagine the next time that you need to have something that multiple people can update. A loop component is probably going to be a great choice. Like I said, highly recommend that you practice with a coworker so that you can see how it looks and feels before you go live with a group of like 20 people or whatever. But anyway, these are how you can use the loop components in these different applications. But I'm going to actually jump back to the loop app. So I want to end here back into this loop app. So when we started, I just came to the home page of the loop app. From this loop app, I could go into any of my workspaces. If I had a workspace that I needed to, I was collaborating with my group of people, etc. A little bit beyond the scope of our class today to do a lot with loop workspaces, but you can see on the left-hand side that I have access to notifications. So if I had any notifications where I was at mentioned, because in any of those loop components, we can do an at and then the person's name, their email address basically, and it will automatically do an at mention to them. We'd be able to see those notifications. If we go into recent, you're going to see that it automatically is showing any of my recent items. Now, by the way, there has been a little bit of an issue with this lately. So when we talk about why am I not seeing my recent items, sometimes you have to do a refresh. That's what I'm finding out on community sites of what it's actually telling us. So here's my leadership action items. If I click on that, it's going to take me back into that. where I could be adding, I could be modifying. So if I want to go back and I want to add student one to be a part of this, to be assigned to this as well, anything that you want to go back and modify, we can do that right within the Loop app itself. I don't have to go back and try and find the email. I don't have to go back to OneNote or into Microsoft Teams. I could just be working with my Loop components directly here. So where do Loop components actually go by default? Well, Loop components that you create are actually stored on your OneDrive. There is a folder, and that's where they are by default. Now, your IT department may have changed that as a universal for your organization, but it's actually in OneDrive. So there's a folder in OneDrive for your Loop components. But otherwise, we do just access them directly here within Loop. So if I had meeting notes that I had done previously with other meetings, I can have access to those coming up. So I had done that leadership meeting. So under my meeting notes, that's my upcoming meeting, I can go back and click on the link and it will take me directly into that Loop component. So if I want to add to my agenda item, because I'm already doing something and I just thought of something else I wanted to do in a different Loop component, I can jump back into it right here. I don't have to worry about going back to Teams, going to the calendar and updating it there. You can have this open, and sometimes I'm in Loop all day long. Some days I'm only in it for part of the day. Some days I'm in it all day long. So having a shortcut on your favorites bar or your bookmark it is a great idea for easy access. But otherwise, if you want to go into recent, you can have your recent down at the bottom left as well. So if I go into my brainstorming, I can actually go back into my brainstorming Loop component or my workspace that I had been working with before. So I have all these different Loop components that can be on these different pages that we can have things very organized and of course be shared. Anytime that you're in a component, a page, or a workspace, you have share icons. Share, it might be a share button or just an icon at the top right, so that you could actually say, what do you want to share? I want to share the entire workspace. You could choose who you want to share it with. You could say, I want to just share it, one component. You could choose whatever it is you want to share. Also, besides just emailing them, I could just copy a link. If you just copy the link, if you already had an email started, you could just put it right in there. So Loop is a powerful tool. Like I said, you want to go back and practice because it's not always easy to understand what it's doing or how helpful it can be until you're actively in it. So I highly recommend that you go back and play. Really, just go back and play with the different options. Now, all of these other slides that I had are really all related to what's in your handout, but the governance and best practices for leaders, make sure that you're not putting confidential information out there and you're having people share the link with people outside of your organization or inside your organization with people that don't need access to it. So just kind of make sure that you don't have those confidential information available to others. Okay, that's really all I wanted to mention when it comes to that information. But Matthew, did we have anyone with any other questions today?